Top 5 buyer mistakes. Stay tuned to this episode of The Den to hear more. The Den, powered by the Lyons Group, where we talk real estate, entrepreneurship, and personal growth. We're a small team of partners sharing what we've learned along the way. Backed by over $500 million in real estate sales and over 2,300 successful transactions. You'll hear from proven experts and industry leaders with a fresh take on what's happening in real estate and beyond. Welcome to The Den. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of The Den. And today we're going to talk about the top 5 buyer mistakes we see here at the Lyons Group. And we don't want you to make those mistakes. So we're going to talk about that today. But before I get into that, let me introduce my friends, my partners, my co-hosts, the fellow members of the Lyons Group. To my right, an empty chair where Paul Hand Me the Rockberry sits, Aspen the Ninja Groen, and the boss, Shannon Martin Martinez. My name is Ben Mishap Lyons. That's right. It's not a mistake. It's a mishap.
Yep.
And I never avoid a good mishap in my life, right? Shannon, I think you're the one that's
true.
Yeah. I just seek those mishaps out like a missile. And that's how I learn. I'm a slow learner. I mean, you've seen it.
Yeah, but learning is growth.
That's
right. That's how you got so smart.
I should be 10 foot tall. Then,
That's right. That's how you got so smart.
So today we're going to talk about the top 5 buyer mistakes that we have or we see in this industry and go through them one by one and talk about them, because we certainly don't want you, if you're looking to buy a property, whether residential or commercial, you don't want to make these mistakes. Now, I would say this as caveat: most people buying commercial or investment properties have been around the block a little bit and probably won't make these mistakes. So this is more geared around someone buying a residential property. So ladies, are you ready to dive right into it?
I'm ready.
Let's do it.
Okay. So number one mistake that we see in this industry from buyers is not getting pre-qualified, which I think is the biggest step that you need to take as a home buyer, is getting your pre-qualification. Why would that be a huge mistake to not get pre-qualified? Shannon Martin Martinez?
Well, the biggest mistake, the biggest reason for that, I think, is because you're just wasting time. You know, I mean, it's terrible to go look at 4 or 5 houses, fall in love with one. You know, you've spent an afternoon or maybe a couple of days doing that. Now you've found what you want and you've made the offer and you've done the hard work of negotiating and deciding what you can live with and what you can't. You've gone back and forth. You know, now you're kind of diving in, you send it to your lender, you start moving forward, you're ordering inspections. And then you realize that, now that you've sent your paperwork to them, that it doesn't really match up with what they thought to begin with. And they can't quite follow through with that. And now you're trying to figure out how to get out of the transaction and with as minimal of a loss as you can.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
That's not the right way to do business.
Yeah.
You wouldn't schedule yourself for appendectomy without going to your doctor first and making sure your appendix was broken.
Yeah.
I mean, there is kind of a right way to do things. And I explain to people that, the pre-qualification, first of all, it gives me guidelines. I don't know how to really write an offer for you unless I know what kind of loan you have, what you need. Do you need closing costs from this seller? Do you need a longer timeline? Do you need, help with, in certain areas? Do you need somebody to buy down some points for you? I don't even know how to write your offer. I mean, I could write an offer for you, but it may or may not work out.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to get what you want if you walk in knowing what you can do and you specifically buy according to what you can buy. You're more likely you're going to close that deal.
Well said.
I think one of the biggest things too is you start looking at houses you can't afford.
Yeah, you're never going to like what you
like. And that's at any price range too.
That's right. You will never like what's in your price range if you've already looked above.
Yep.
You never will.
You really won't.
Yeah.
Because there's big jumps.
Yeah.
And sometimes the big jumps happen with $50,000.
Yeah.
So you really can't guess. You kind of need to go in with realistic expectations.
Yeah. And how many times have you had somebody that might look at some houses and they like a few of them, and then, really what they can afford, they just decide that, maybe I'm just not ready to buy because I don't like anything.
Mm-hmm.
If they had been properly set up and groomed to, this is what we're looking at, they may have come in with a different attitude, different eyes. They don't have that sour feeling like they're losing out on something.
Yeah. Well, what do you think about people that say, well, I did a quick pre-qual online and it says my payment's going to be here, and that's good, right? I mean, what would you say to a buyer like that?
That scares me.
Yeah. Because the reality is once you actually get in, and there's a difference for our audience. There's a difference between a pre-qualification and then a pre-approval. And that difference is this. Pre-qualification is what you're stating, right? They may run your credit and you're stating that you make this much income. You're stating that you have this much debt. But you haven't verified it, right? The lender has not seen the actual income. They haven't verified your actual debt. And once they go through the verification, then you move from pre-qualification to a pre-approval because they've actually vetted some information. And that carries a lot more weight. Now, a lot of people use those terms interchangeably. It's a pre-qual, pre-approval. It's an addendum or it's an amendment. Well, they're kind of two different things. So it is important to do that because Aspen, why? What may change between a pre-qual and a pre-approval for a buyer?
Well, you might, depending on how much you're putting down, there might be, and depending on the area you're looking in, taxes, insurance, maybe you have PMI, your mortgage insurance, but also it's just it's just risky. I don't want to do anything without knowing what I can purchase.
Yeah.
And also just because I'm pre-qualified or pre-approved for that amount does not mean that that's the amount I should be buying at. And also, what if you have a lot of overtime? Yeah, you might make this much money, but what if half of your paycheck is overtime? That's going to be calculated differently, and only your lender's going to be able to do that.
Yeah, those automated systems, when you could do something really quick online, they don't take that deeper look. They don't look at that stuff. So that stuff might be dialed back when you actually start digging into it.
Yeah, are you paying child support?
Yeah.
Do you have any student loans? Did you co-sign on your grandma's car? There's so many things. Maybe you even forgot about things that could come up.
Right.
We see that all the time. People forgot about, I forgot I did co-sign for my nephew's car. And now you basically have to claim that as debt.
Yeah.
And that goes against your debt to income, which will impact your.
Another problem I find with these people that do something online is when you really start digging in and talking to them, they don't have a lot of information at that point. So they'll say things like, you'll say, well, do you have money for your closing costs? Well, what is that? And how much would that be?
Yeah.
Yeah. You're going to need to know that. That's pretty important to know. How much down payment are you going to put down? I don't know. Did I have to put down a down payment?
Yeah.
Yeah. You probably do. Or I don't know. I mean, depending, what kind of loan, are you going to get a USDA loan? Or are you willing to buy outside of town to not do that? Or, people know that, know what you can do so that we're looking at the houses that you can actually buy. That's the best plan. That's the only plan.
Well, and it's respectful too for a seller, right? You're asking a seller to get up and leave their house, get it all cleaned up.
Yep.
Put the dogs up and they leave their home and you come in and you may love the house, you may not, but regardless, are you truly viable to purchase that? That's the question. And so the realtors that you're working with, the seller that you displace while you want to go see a property, you better be prepared to be able to purchase or have the ability to purchase that property if you're asking someone to move around their schedule and leave.
Yeah, I've even had, because sometimes maybe I can be on the harsh side. I don't try to be, but I know that I will be very
You're on the
candid.
harsh side with me. You're very candid with me.
I am. And
in all honesty, she's not. She's very soft.
But I will tell buyers outright, I'll say, with all due respect, you don't even have a pre-qualification letter. I'm not really excited to line up showings. Let's take care of that first.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people think that it's an insult on them, that maybe I don't trust them or I don't think they have money or I think, ill of them. But that is the crux of it, is at the end of the day, it is very unprofessional of me to take somebody's time to prance somebody through your house. And I haven't even checked to see if they can even buy your house, if they're even a buyer. It's not an open house. An open house is one thing. You expect a certain level of people coming through your house that aren't qualified or that are just looking at it or whatever. You do not expect a professional to ask you to clean and then leave and then walk somebody through your house and, displace you and your animals and see everything that you own in the house and never have even checked if they're capable of buying that house. I think that's very unprofessional.
It's also a safety and liability issue.
Absolutely it is. Because you don't know if the person on the other end of that phone just wants in that house because that's where their ex-girlfriend lives and they want to see what it looks like in there, or they want to check out, they saw something in the picture and they want to know, case it so they can come back later. I mean, I know those are few and far between.
Yeah. But it's happened.
That's right. And we're not trying to accuse a buyer of that, but you don't realize there is you're asking a lot by asking somebody to come over and open up a house and go in there. And if you're really a buyer, you should be willing to be at the level of being a buyer before you ask that of somebody.
Very, very fair. Hi, I'm Ben Lyons, a partner at the Lyons Group. We're dedicated to making your real estate experience the best it can be. If you're looking to buy or sell, go to sjcbroker.com and watch our informational video series. These videos break down the process and shed some light on buying or selling. While you're there, schedule a private consultation with one of our partners. We'd love to sit down, talk strategy, and give you a real advantage in today's market. You deserve the best. So take those steps, and we'll see you soon. Now back to the show. Okay, so that's number one, is not getting pre-qualified as a buyer before you go out there. And there's a plethora of reasons why. I mean, everything from your well-being to the people that you're displacing when you go see a property to everyone's time in between, the professionalism of the realtor that you're working with. Speaking of realtors, number two biggest mistake that buyers make is not finding the right realtor for them. Now, I'm not saying that I'm the right realtor for everybody, but I'm saying the buyers don't take time to find the right realtor for them, for their personality, for their needs, for their timing. That's a process that should be vetted. People should put some thought into that. And we've seen where oil and water don't mix sometimes, and it doesn't create a healthy situation for a buyer when they may be in an antagonistic situation with their realtor. And ladies, you want to speak to that at all?
Well, I'm just going to say that I'm for everyone. So
for the people.
That's right. That's right. So you're not making a bad decision. No, I'm not for everybody, and I'm aware of that. But I do think that's incredibly important, because I've had brokers that I think are very difficult, or they're not very good, and their clients love them, and that's good. They're not for me, but they were right for those particular clients. But it is extremely important, because if you're somebody that's, very demanding and very emotional, and you're going to be on a roller coaster ride, you probably don't want somebody who's just very business oriented, and they're maybe professional. They're going to do a great job for you. But if you need to be nursed, you probably need to find the right broker for that. And same on the other side, you might want someone who's a little bit more professional or a little higher standards than what some brokers are pretty laid back. There's nothing wrong with that, but it is the biggest purchase or sale you're ever going to make. And you want to know that person that, you need to be pretty tight with them. You need to feel really good about them.
Yeah. Being self-aware is important. Like, if I know that I have a tendency to go, it's no big deal. Oh, it's fine. Oh, I'm still going to move forward. And I'm only focused on the end. I'm not focused on the in-between. Maybe you want to find a realtor that does focus on the in-between, that is a little bit more analytical thinking.
Sure.
That will shore up those things, and that you completely trust, knowing that your personality may be hey, I'm just focused on the end, and whatever happens in between doesn't matter. Well, yeah, it does. It does matter quite a bit. What are your thoughts on that, Aspen?
It makes me think of whenever I had my kids, my OB was a fantastic doctor. His bedside manner was not fantastic. I did not care. To me, that is like the least of my concern. If you're talking a little bit harshly about my weight gain, I don't really care. Versus I know a lot of people had the same doctor, and it really was a turnoff to them.
Right.
It made them feel very uncomfortable. And I think that's the same way for anyone, any job, really. Mm-hmm. There's going to be a checkout line that you like to go through more, because maybe they're less chatty or more chatty, or who knows, so it's kind of always just, what is your preference to do? I know I kind of always have the thing of like, I don't like everyone. Everyone's probably not going to like me, and that's fine. And I know some realtors get really upset whenever their friends and family don't use them. I actually don't get very upset, because we see everything. We really get in your business, and I try and be very mindful and respectful of that, but someone might not want me to see all their business. Mm-hmm. And I think that's completely fine. Yeah. So it's not taking it personally, but also just knowing that you don't want every client's not going to want you, and that's okay.
Yeah. Do you remember that show? I think it was like, well, you wouldn't, because I think it was in the 70s or the 80s. Love Connection, where you get like, the bachelor or bachelorette sits on one side, and on the other side, there's three prospective dates. Yeah. And you get to talk to them and get to know them and really choose someone. Like, wouldn't that be nice if you could do that with realtors and get exactly who you connected with, you thought was going to be a good match, as opposed to a lot of people end up with them because, they might call, and this isn't wrong, but, they'll call Zillow, they'll request a tour, and somebody showed up and that's who they ended up with. And you hear that a lot. Somebody will say, well, I worked with so-and-so last time and I wasn't really happy. And,
for first-time homebuyers especially.
Exactly. Yeah. And they say, well, we just ended up with them. And, you shouldn't just end up with somebody. You should be intentional about who you're choosing to guide you. You would choose, your dentist, and you would choose your accountant, and you would choose your home decorator, and you would choose these people based on how you felt about them, not just because they're the ones that showed up at your door when you raised your hand and said, I want something. So it is important.
And sometimes I care more about personality, and sometimes I care more about the work that they're doing.
Right.
And sometimes you can get both with the Lyons Group.
That's right. Because here we're one-stop shopping.
Exactly.
I love that. Well, I think it's an important step that most people probably don't put enough time or effort or thought into. And two things, Shannon. One is they graduated the bachelor. What was the Love Connection? They moved that to what's it called? Love is Blind now.
Oh yeah, I don't watch that either.
Yeah,
maybe I've never heard of that.
Yeah, so now they actually get behind. They like there's maybe 15 gals and 15 guys, and they do these meetups, but everything is behind closed doors. In the sense that you can't see the other person. And usually there's people proposing behind a closed door. They've never met the other person physically, which is pretty wild. So that's the evolution of the Love Connection.
Yeah, I guess
Love is Blind. So you don't want to be playing the Love is Blind game with a realtor for sure. And then I forgot the other point of that, but that's what I was going to say. You have a home decorator?
I don't, but could you imagine like just raising your hand and saying, I need one, and one shows up at your house, and maybe they...
And all the floral print comes out.
Right. I was remembering back, and I was thinking of home decorators because recently I drove past a house that I lived in the early 90s. And back then I was a nanny. And so I lived with a doctor and his wife. And she had wallpaper put down. And I was thinking, is that wallpaper still up? It can't be still up. She put wallpaper down the hallway, and it was, they had a bottom wallpaper and then the chair railing and a top wallpaper. And it was literally like zigzags of different colors, pink, all down the hallway. And I remember even then thinking like, that is the worst wallpaper I've ever seen in my life. But she was very meticulous about getting it. She had a designer who picked it all out for her. They were both thrilled with it. And I always think about that. I always think, I know that's got to be gone by now because nobody else would like that, but she got the right person. But if that person had showed up at my house with that wallpaper, they would have been fired within an hour.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
But
there's someone for everybody.
There's good wallpaper out there, and there's bad wallpaper out there.
It's back in style now.
It is.
Wallpaper's a thing.
Yeah. There's some pretty cool stuff now. It's really so different now than it was in the 80s.
For sure.
So different.
So we've done number one and number two. Number one, not getting pre-qualified. Number two, not interviewing or pairing up with the right realtor. And number three is buying above your means. And we do see that on occasion. I should say out of the five, we don't see this as much, but it is something that every buyer probably struggles or teeters with. Ladies, what are your thoughts on that?
I think I see this the most.
Do you see it the most?
People buying at the top of their budget. They're pre-approved for $500 and they're buying at $499.
Yeah.
To me,
fair enough. Yeah.
And that's just, again, what's your comfort level with that? I'm like, let's keep this under 15%, 10%. I get really nervous about debt, especially personal debt. Not so much investment debt, but I just am like, man, you can get up to 44% debt to income. Isn't that what it is? Something around
42.
42.
Some programs even go up to 50%.
That's wild. And I know some people, I always find like your first house, you're probably going to be a little bit higher on there because you're getting into it. You maybe you've been at a job for a shorter period of time. But I think this is one that I almost never see people purchase below their pre-approval letter.
Yeah. Now that I think of it, you're probably right. I do see people go dang near to the top of what they can.
But I think 5 years ago it was
qualify for.
easier to purchase below. But I think now prices have been elevated to the point where most people are just barely getting enough money.
Yeah, which I
to
do
be
agree
able-
for, especially
Yeah.
your first home. And I feel like that
Mhm.
was even the case back when.
For first time home buyers, that's
Yeah.
probably always been the case. Yeah. Yeah, you get that one little first time home buyer that says, I'm pre-qualified up to 120. And you're like, I don't even know if there's one house on the market that's in
Mhm.
that price range. And that's not to be rude,
Yeah.
So they're going to have to,
reality of
they're
it.
going to
Mhm.
have to sacrifice and they're going to have to pay as much as they can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Buying above or right at the top end of what you qualify for. Now, for our audience, typically we try to have this conversation of, look, what you qualify for and what you feel comfortable with, maybe two different things. And and hopefully that's the case. Hopefully you buy under what you can actually qualify for, because things happen in life. Like the debt to income ratio is a calculation where you put your debts forward against your income, and your debts, including your new mortgage, should be 42% for a lot of programs. And in some instances, it even goes up to 50%, but they don't account for in that debt. They don't account for cell phones. They don't account for food. They don't account for utilities. They don't account for life insurance. They don't account for all of these things. So that 50% that is not considered debt gets eaten up pretty quick. And you don't want to be in a position where you're house strapped, where you just can't enjoy life, because no one needs to sacrifice the enjoyment and fulfillment of life and making memories with your family and doing all these wonderful things for a house. Wait till you're ready, or buy a little bit under what you can afford versus buying right at the top end, because we've seen problems where, I'm sure we've all seen this. We go to closing, and then within 12 months, furnace goes out, and there's there's $8,000 or $12,000 right there, and then it's a pinch for those buyers. So
especially if you couldn't save because you're at the very top of your budget,
Right.
and that stuff just happens. It doesn't. A lot of times, it's not like your furnace starts making weird noises and then goes out. Normally, just goes out. That's been my experience, anyways. It's like
Right.
all of a sudden, maybe you can prolong it a little bit, but it's typically it just happens. And what do you do?
Yep. And welcome to home ownership is
Mhm.
what happens. And you got to be prepared for that. And so, like you said, if you're strapped, if you're just making your monthly payments and not being able to put any extra away for, retirement or the rainy fund or just the slush fund in general, then maybe it's not the purchase point you need to be at. And so we do see that. And that is a big mistake, because once you're in it, it's a big hit to sell that property and move out. You've gone through all that process of buying the property, and then you're going to have costs associated with selling the property, and you don't want to be in that position. So that's a tough position to be in. That was number 3. Number 4, moving right along, waiving inspections. Terrible idea, even on new construction. In fact, we purchased a commercial building last year, and we did a property inspection on that new construction, and we are still dealing with things that came up on that inspection report, and it can be ugly even on new construction. So, ladies, you want to shed some light on why people should not waive their inspections?
I love it when you list a property or something and the seller goes, no, I don't know of anything wrong in the house. Well, of course you don't. And I try to explain that to buyers. Even the seller doesn't know stuff that's going on in their house. They don't know if there's something on their roof that's wrong. They don't know if there's some mold growing in their crawl space. Most sellers don't know that they have birds living in their attic, So it's not necessarily to find out all the things that the seller is hiding from you. It's to find out all the things that nobody even knows about. And it is very important. I recommend everybody have one. If you don't want to have one, you don't have to have one. It's not required. And I think most people don't realize it is not required. But it is very cheap insurance. When you're buying a $500,000 house, a $300,000, even a $200,000 house, why would you not spend, $500 to $700 or, whatever it happens to be in your area, to know exactly the condition of the house? Even if you take it and you take those repairs that need to be done and you accept them and you say, I'll fix them myself, or you negotiate it out with the seller, at least you know if you can live with it or not. Mm-hmm. And you don't want to get into something you can't live with. Yeah,
very well said. Aspen, you want to piggyback on that?
I go back and forth on it. It just depends how handy you are, I think, too. Like, I know we don't really care too much about inspections for the most part, as long as, we can tell the roof's old. It's probably going to need a new roof. We can tell some of these things, and you can tell if a house has been taken care of or not. And if a house hasn't been taken care of, or if it's a new build, then I would always get an inspection. But for me, I'm like, you can tell they've really maintained everything. They have all the receipts for everything that they've done. And for me, I don't get too worked up about it, but I know that we have the means and the capability to fix most of these things. So that's where I kind of go back and forth on it. If I can see that, okay, it has a old hot water heater, I'm just going to get a quote for a tankless, or it has a evaporative cooler. I'll get a quote for an HVAC. If I know it's important to me, then I'll do it. But I also kind of know the estimated costs that might be associated with it. Now, if there's a bunch of trees out front over the lines, I might want to get the line scoped. So there's certain things where it's like you might want to do, instead of a general home inspection, get a little bit more specialized. That's what I recommend doing. But a general inspection is really good if you know you're not exceptionally handy.
So what you are saying, Aspen, is actually you're an anomaly, because most buyers don't have the knowledge that you have to be able to go in and take care of these things, or to say, I know, I can see that that's an older hot water heater and we're going to replace it with the tankless. A lot of buyers just don't know. And my thought would be for a buyer is that, the whole point of a home inspection is they're there to just kind of raise the flag. Like, this one needs attention. This one needs attention. There's trusses in the roof that are cracked that will probably need to be resupported, or something to that effect that you as a buyer may not be aware of. And you want to understand the full picture before you purchase the property. Then you can take it a step further, is what you're saying is get a specific contractor to go out that does roofing, that does these trusses, that can give you a quote on that, so you understand what you're buying. I think the problem that we run into is when people do think that it's kind of like the guy who says, oh, I can fix that, I can fix that, I can fix that. And their partner goes, he says that all the time, but this still doesn't work, and that still hasn't been replaced, and this thing hasn't been done. And although knowing that they can do it, actually having it done are two different things. And so if you don't even know what needs to be done, that's the problem.
I think my rub too with getting the home inspection is like, okay, we have 2 weeks for inspections. We get this general home inspection done, and then that's it. Now we negotiate off that. I'm like, I don't want to negotiate off that. Let's get that done if you want a general home inspection, let's get it done within the first few days, if possible.
Yes.
And then we can try and get some more people out there, because I can completely acknowledge that most people, me and Bryson don't negotiate on the home inspections unless something absolutely crazy popped up. We've just looked through them and been like, okay, yep, looks good. We'll figure it out. But I don't want to negotiate off of that, because just because I know, what my hot water heater cost doesn't mean that that's what this one's going to cost. So I feel like it's a lot of guessing. And I see that way too much with home inspections, where we're negotiating off that, but we're really just guessing at the amount instead of
actually getting a contractor to say, this is what it's going to cost to replace that 12 foot of sewer line that the roots are going into, or whatever that is. But at least I think the biggest mistake, and this is why it's number 4, is buyers just do not think about all of the things that could be going wrong or could be issues with a property. And then they close on it and they go, oh man, yeah, I should have vetted that out. And that is a big mistake in my eyes. As long as you understand what you're buying and you're good with it, like in your instance, as long as you understand and you're good with it, like in your instance, that's one thing. But there's a lot of buyers that don't know what they don't know, which is, I've always wanted to say that you don't know what you don't know. Right?
True. That's true.
And then it becomes seriously problematic when those things kick in. Last thing, number 5, this is a big one, and I've seen it cost more buyers more money than probably all of these others combined. And that is waiting for the perfect time. And we hear this all the time in this business. So I'm going to wait. The market's going to crash. It's going to go downhill. Rates are going to soften. There's not enough inventory, things like that. Waiting for the perfect time is going to take you forever, because there's never a perfect time to move into the market other than when the time is perfect for you, which means in your eyes, ladies, what would that mean?
There's really no such thing. I remember whenever I bought my house, I thought I overpaid for it by about $60,000. It was a for sale by owner, and she was tough, man. She was really giving it to us, and we really liked the house, and It fit what we were looking for. So we moved forward on it, and I had a real rub. I was like, man, we overpaid for this house, but we love the house and it was worth it. It has darn near almost doubled in price, in value. In a short period of time. So there's really not doubled, but very close to. And I'm like, man, good thing we didn't not move forward over that $60,000.
Because you see that a lot. You see a lot of people that will say, I'll just wait till interest rates are 1% cheaper. Okay, well, if that takes 4 or 5 years to get to that, and then prices are constantly elevating during that time, you're probably not saving money.
You should just refinance when it gets closer.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
To a point. Yeah. There was that. I'm like, we have to just ignore what it was. I would love to see them get a little bit lower, but we're not even really close to what we were pre-COVID too. If we kept waiting and waiting and waiting.
Just refinance. It's not the end of the world, right?
It's not.
But I guarantee you, if rates are that low, you're going to be fighting over houses for people and overpaying.
You're going to pay for it anyways.
That's the double-edged sword, right? As rates drop down, I'm going to wait till the rates drop down.
And everybody else.
Rates drop down, everyone enters the market. Now you're bidding the price up versus, I'll take the higher interest rate and less competition, which means maybe the market softened a little bit for the sellers, so I can try to scoop up a good deal. And so what I see the problem with a lot of buyers is that they just keep waiting on the sidelines going, those conditions aren't right. They're just concerned about the market crashing. The market's going to crash in real estate. Well, there's no signs or indications that anything is going to crash in real estate. I know it may feel like that, but feeling versus the reality of what's going on in the market with supply and demand are two different things. We don't have the willy-nilly lending situation that we had back in 2008. It's just not conducive to what the market is. So a crash is very highly unlikely. And if you're waiting for that, probably not going to happen. So don't wait. Get yourself into a position. And the perfect timing is when you're ready to pull the trigger by being financially ready, getting your pre-qualification, your pre-approval done, and then start researching what's going on in the market. And then at that point, make your move when you can. That is the strategic. That is the best move you can do. So waiting for the perfect time is probably the biggest mistake you can make as a buyer. So let's recap that. We have the top 5 mistakes that buyers make. Number 1, buyers not going and getting pre-approved for their loan before they go home shopping. Number 2, they're not vetting the realtor that they're going to work with, as that is an important part of the process. Number 3, they're buying above their means. What you qualify for and what you feel comfortable paying may be 2 different things and probably should be 2 different things. Number 4, waiving inspections or not performing inspections or due diligence on the property altogether. And number 5, the biggest mistake that we see is buyers waiting for the perfect time. It can cost you dearly, especially if you put a few years behind that. So thank you. Great conversation, ladies. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Den. We love having transparent, open conversations about what we think would help impact your situation to the better. So if you like our content, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Of course, you can go to our Facebook page, follow us there, and you can always go to sjcbroker.com and schedule a private consultation with any member here at the Lyons Group. We'd love to sit down with you, whether you're buying or selling residential or commercial. We can give you an advantage in today's market. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Den. Until next time, we'll see you then. Thanks for tuning into The Den, powered by the Lyons Group. If you got value from today's episode, hit subscribe so you never miss what's next. Check the show notes with direct links to our buyer and seller video series, your inside track to making smarter moves in real estate. Want to take it further? Visit sjcbroker.com to learn more about the Lyons Group or schedule a private consultation today. Complex markets demand smart strategies. Whether you're buying or selling, residential or commercial, we're here to give you the edge. We're time-tested experts with a client-first approach, and we'll see you next time in The Den.